welcome Bhavisha and Meenakshi, the founders of Capsul, and also my favorite girls.
Yeah.
Um, as like this is just for people watching this, Bhavisha and Meenakshi are founders of the multi-brand streetwear platform Capsule. That's a kind of a tongue twister.
I
So
was just going to say
I
that sounds
managed
like a
it.
mouthful.
Yeah. Okay. So, Bhavisha and Meenakshi, you've been in this space for about 10 years, more than 10 years, and are now literally paving the way for the streetwear industry in India. I, for one, am very excited to hear all about it and see what what you guys have been up to and what are you doing differently. Of course, the fashion world in India is definitely mesmerized by you guys. You've been covered in Men's World, Vogue, GQ, Verve, all these magazines, and everybody is kind of starting to take notice and trying to they're at least recognizing what you guys are up to. So very excited to have you here and talk about what you're doing. So to start with, this is, I mean, I just want to know, like, what is streetwear? This is just for the uninitiated. I remember this term sort of cropped up about maybe 5 years ago, where everybody was wearing streetwear, and you know, there was no clear definition of what is streetwear. So you tell us, what is streetwear?
Thank you, Nidhi, for having us. Bhavisha and I, both of us, are really happy to be part of this forum, and we are the first speakers on your series of conversations on entrepreneurship and women
Yeah.
in general and being in the business. So thank you for having us, and thanks for such a warm welcome. Calling me a fashion guru is like another level, taking it to another level. But yeah, we'll be there. Thank you for that.
Your words have never been spoken though.
Yeah. I mean, if the fashion world is taking notice, then you guys are definitely doing something right.
Thank you for that. Yes, I mean, streetwear has been a man's world, and it's been tough that we are playing our game in this world. And yeah, it was a tough start, but I think both of us together, we are kind of making it smooth for each other. So coming to streetwear, Bhavisha defines as much better, because she's been like into, all the pillars of streetwear from the very beginning. I'm a late joiner. However, like I love every element of what, streetwear is made of. So streetwear primarily actually started as label of clothing and accessories that were all inspired by adventure sports like surfing, skating, and then later on, a few years later, genres of streetwear like hip hop and punk got added, and the way people expressed with the kind of clothing that they would wear and the kind of the culture that they would live basically became street culture, and hence streetwear. So Bhavisha, would you like to add a few points of facts here, how streetwear came to be?
Before that, thank you so much, Nidhi, for having us.
I'm
We've
glad
been
to have
looking
you
forward
guys.
to this for a while, and like Meenakshi said, I love Bizjam. Shout out Bizjam.
Yoo-hoo! For Bizwize Consulting. Shameless plug.
I love first mover stories. So I think it's kind of special, and that we're the first speakers on your show. So it's great. Streetwear for me is basically just a fashion expression of youth culture. And while it has its origins in sort of skate fashion, surf fashion, hip hop, it's just constantly evolving because that's what the youth does. There's a certain, it's the fashion of the streets, primarily like, tastemakers that are sort of being wooed by big brands or just about anybody in that youth demographic, the way they dress, that is sort of trending. And that inspires even designers. So streetwear is essentially that. And if you had to define it by what kind of products actually make up streetwear, it's t-shirts, hoodies, tracksuits, sneakers. That essentially is streetwear. But at Capsule, we love this guy called Bobby Kim. He is one of the founders of an OG streetwear brand called The Hundreds, which is not just a brand. It's a brand, it's a media project. They have investments, they sort of incubate different brands, they have restaurants. They depict a whole lifestyle basically. They're Peter Pan, two guys who are Peter Pan, Peter Pans,
Okay.
and have a very, very exciting life. But Bobby in himself, his thinking and the way he sort of writes about streetwear, he's been documenting streetwear for a really long time, and that's what makes him such a big OG. The reason I'm bringing him up is when you talk about defining streetwear, for me, and I'm sure Meenakshi will agree with me, the definition is incomplete without quoting Bobby. That streetwear without community is just fashion.
Yeah, actually,
That
that's true.
is in essence what streetwear is, built around a community, sort of depicting, while all of those may sound like heavy words, but is basically like fashion depicting a certain lifestyle.
Yeah.
Cool, ahead of the curve, like a cool kid's uniform, if you will.
Nice. And you know, that's what excites me about streetwear so much, because I guess streetwear is all about community, and I've seen that everyone associated with streetwear is so passionate about a particular brand, about sneakers, about, you know, what have you. But the one characteristic of streetwear is that it always follows a heavily engaged community. So I guess we'll talk about that a little later in the session today.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so you know, kicking off, I'm really curious, like, how did you guys get into it, and how did you get the idea of, you know, starting something like a Capsule, like, you know, in a country where streetwear is pretty much taking birth right now?
You know, Nidhi, there are two segments of streetwear. One is the culture part and the other is the business part. So both of us, Bhavisha and I, we met at Puma India. We were part of the brand marketing team, you know, for 4 years in India. And then I moved on to work as the commercial marketing manager for 27 countries in the EMEA region. And Bhavisha was leading marketing for Russia, Turkey, Ukraine, and CIS countries. And during those 3 years when we were outside is when we actually got exposed to what this street culture in the true sense means. And you know, working at Puma gave us a lot of exposure as well, because this is what was happening 6 years back. A lot of brands, Nike, Puma, Adidas, all of them, you know, they've been there for ages. And there was a time when they were kind of losing the heat. Nike still had real cool products coming out, like the Jordans are, you know, the hottest pieces. However, the other brands were not doing so well. While during the same time, these community-led streetwear labels were rising, you know, and they were really, really getting very popular. So what happened was that the big fashion world, which was basically this whole athleisure, you know, the conglomerate of these brands, athleisure brands, they kind of started collaborating with the streetwear labels. And suddenly they saw a spike in the sales, because the community that was kind of, you know, the coolest community out there, which was, you know, they were seen in all the streetwear levels. Now they were also kind of like driving the heat to the brands like Puma, Adidas, Nike back again. And that's where this whole culture of streetwear started rising. You know, the big brands started pushing more money behind popularizing the term streetwear and this whole culture. And not only clothing, you know, like it was all about a lot of accessories started coming out. Restaurants had that flavor, you know, music started adapting to all those kind of things. So it was seen everywhere. And this was very attractive, especially to me when I was, you know, living in Europe. And because it's not only about throwing in money there, there was a lot of amalgamation of like good quality art and design as well. So this made streetwear very relevant to me and my life. And I was like, oh, this is something that I relate to, you know. And then Bhavisha and I, we kept on talking. We used to joke a lot that, and especially Bhavisha actually, she would drive the whole brand marketing team, especially in India, that we have to do something together. Like it was conversations like we should open a print shop. Why are we spending so much money on canvas prints, you know, like while we were marketeers? So things like that. And then it came to be that this is something that both of us like. Why should not we go back to India and start this together? But then Bhavisha was also part of this another region, right, of EMEA, and she saw, like, she'll tell you what all, you know, influenced her.
I think for me, you know, there's one thing that, in addition to community and all of that, defines streetwear and street culture. Overall, it is youth energy, you know, and it's just so exciting and it's just so energetic. Like there's chaos, there's there's a lot of life in there, and I think that's what draws me to it, because that's how I am essentially as a person. And some wise person somewhere said that if you can figure out a way to turn your passion into into your vocation, nothing like it, and look for something that you don't have to work. It's not it's not like working hard to figure out more and to learn more about it. It just comes naturally to you. And for me, that is this part, and just the business of culture. I mean, it's exciting to have young creative people contributing, creating, building their own identity. And it's not just like a regular 9 to 5 job, or the standard ways of sort of living your life and finding a job, but it's sort of like blazing your own trail, so as to speak. That is what is super exciting, and that's just been something that I've seen ever since I was a kid. Like, more and more with every passing generation, with every passing couple of 2-3 years, more and more people are taking to that and making that their vocation. That's something that always drew me to it. I used to be a roller skater, a speed skater, when I was in my school days, and I did nationals and stuff like that. But while it was so interesting that I used to bust my chops trying to better myself, but I could never participate in a sports quota because the country never recognized skating as a sport. Although I practiced like 5 hours a day, 2.5 hours in the morning, 2.5 hours in the evening, missing school, missing exams, traveling for my competitions and stuff like that. But I was always, because I was into skating, X Games was something that had a big influence in my life. Like, I used to always dream when I was a kid that I would go study in the US and then I would participate in the X Games. I used to wake up early in the morning to watch the X Games. I used to play basketball as well in school. So the NBA was my jam. I used to love it. And hip hop. I think these are the 3 things that influenced me as a kid. But then sort of serious life catches on and you do all your adult things. But it's just great that I'm in a space where I am able to work in a space which uses all these influences. And, I've realized over the course, like, I have Puma to thank for it, to see and realize just how much structure there is in the business of culture. And I really feel great that Capsul is able to build itself and to, inshallah, we continue to grow, and we're just able to continue to build that and, drive a certain ecosystem even here in India, to continue to sort of push that business of culture forward.
Wow, this is really interesting. Like, you mentioned that there's a lot of structure in the business of culture. I mean, first of all, culture itself is such a, I would say, a vague term. What is culture? And, how do you define culture? And first of all, how do you get into the business of culture? And can you tell me more about it? What do you mean by, there's structure in the business of culture?
Bhavisha, go for it.
For me, I thought we have the where every time we're doing these conversations, Meenakshi starts first and then I go. So I was just like, okay.
Okay.
I mean, my two bit on that
video freeze.
Oh, that's a trick. My two bit on this is that if somebody who's completely, not part of the streetwear world, if they want to see how this is, put in a structural shell, I would say one should visit, these trade shows and what do you call, like, culture cons like Complex Con, Berlin Bread and Butter, Seek Berlin, Agenda. Like, these are basically 2 to 3 days kind of festivals where all the streetwear labels, independent ones, like brands which are backed by giant corporates, all of them, they put up their, they showcase their products there. So that is one place at least where you can go and place your buys for the product for the next season or like the next drop. But apart from that, there's a huge crowd of youth there that you can see, and you kind of bird watch them, and kind of absorb what they are into, what they're doing, what are they liking, because there's so much option there in such trade shows. It's crazy. It's not only about clothing, it's about everything, like experience, food, music, like festivals are big. It's almost like, I mean, it's not open to public except for a couple of them. Like the last one that we went to was Yo Hood in Shanghai, and that was open to the public, so people could have bought tickets there. However, like a lot of other trade shows are only meant for like business people, but still like there's so many young I would say skaters and dammers who are invited by these independent labels that you can see what the youth is all about, So this is one place where you see, okay, where is culture leading to? What is the next kind of music that people are going to be aligned to in say next 6 months? What are the clothing and accessories going to look like? What's the artwork that's going to be popular? Those kind of things. Yeah.
Bhavisha, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think for me, like, culture is a very sort of like a large word in its sense that every organization that exists has a culture, right? When you go to business, you have human behavior and organization which speaks of culture, business culture, and, corporate culture and stuff like that.
Right.
If you think about the culture in the sense that we're talking about it, before I go into the space that we occupy, if you think about like, motorcycle culture, there's so many aspects that make that lifestyle come alive, right? There's clothes, there's gear, there's bikes, there's shoes, there's travel. So all of these, in my books, form pillars that add to that business of culture. If you talk about what we're into, and street culture is something, that is super like widely encompassing. Like motorbike culture, motorcycle culture could be a pillar of it because it's anything that you see on the streets, right? And it's just like tattoo culture, sneaker culture, streetwear culture, basketball, hip hop, all of these. So basically businesses that fuel all of these together, whether it's, street art, graffiti, just about everything. Now put all of that into perspective. There are creators and there are businesses catering to and creating and consumers buying all of this, right? So just imagine the whole scope and the scale of that entire business of culture. We've been, in fact, before we started out, while we were starting out at Capsul, to get started, we did a few consultancy gigs, like culture consultancy gigs. And we figured that every time we say street culture, it's not something that everybody sort of has, like when you say street culture, it's not that suddenly something comes in front of your, like pops into your head, right? Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. It doesn't work like
3 years back is what Bhavisha's.
Yeah. So we actually put together a video to speak to like a lot of brands in the country to tell them like what the business of culture is, how much money is sort of being churned with the art world. So for instance, like a Banksy piece can go for like $1 million. Futura, who's my favorite artist, sells for anywhere between $50,000 to $200,000, $300,000, his works. So when brands do collaborations with like let's say any of the brands that we sort of work with, the range of like their fee just to engage a streetwear brand or a culture creator could be like anywhere between $30,000 to $70,000.
Wow.
There's an amazing artist called Joshua Vides who does these giant rooms and he converts those into like these 2D sort of art pieces with just like, he sort of animates it in a certain sense. I have a piece by him. If he has to work on an exhibition, he charges $100,000. So all of this together, it's not a sum of money that you can ignore. Sneaker business is what, I don't know, like 108 before pre-COVID. I think the streetwear business was, I think, $185 billion.
Yeah, I read about that.
So this is big money, and there are people who are contributing who, I don't know why it took so long, maybe for a lot of people to realize that there are, there is good amount of money to be made while you're having a great time doing it.
But I think there's one aspect here that I've noticed specifically with streetwear, right? Like there are your regular fashion retailers that are now figuring out that streetwear is something that they should get into, and there's this huge community that can be tapped into. And then there are individual players who are specifically, streetwear driven, who are so it's pretty much it's like you either know it or you don't.
Yeah.
With streetwear. So
and even if you know it, you probably don't know it. So
yeah. So what's that key ingredient that you gotta know to be in the streetwear business?
If you know, you know. Well, so again, I think every such question will have answers in two aspects. One is basically people who have always been part of these communities, right? Like who are actually surfers and skaters and hip hop artists, and they live that kind of life. So obviously, like, they know if they have to buy a t-shirt made by a certain, I mean, person who's like kind of leading a community or like leading a sense of fashion, they know where to go and get that. And
Right.
later on, this was joined by people who basically are just consumers. They buy that because for the love of these pillars of streetwear. They love that kind of music. They love watching people surf. They love how skaters dress, and they want to be seen like that. They want to look as cool as a skater looks like. And that's why they're consumers, and that actually forms in today's times, that forms a larger chunk of the people who are consuming streetwear in total. So
So it's the
yeah,
aspiration
I mean,
aspect that is what.
and then there are a lot of
makes
more
it.
things. People have to be on top of the news related to streetwear. So there are these global publications like Complex, High Snobiety, Hypebeast, which keep on publishing what is coming out next. Especially because this streetwear world and sneaker culture is driven a lot by product drops. So these kind of publications keep on coming out with the latest on what's dropping, what's coming out, what to expect in the next season, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of websites and blogs and apps that came out who started to kind of bring those product, like the hottest pieces, to the consumer. So an example would be like, and there's a lot of reselling that happens because these products are always in limited edition. So they are bought by these kids who are queuing up outside a Supreme store or a Nike store or whatever to get their hands on the first pair. And then they resell it in the market, right, for like, I don't know, 10x, 20x, whatever suits that time, the trade market of sneakers. So yeah, I mean, this is what it is. If and there are so many labels in streetwear, right? And each of them have certain philosophy behind them. There's a brand called Stussy. If you are wearing Stussy, and I know what Stussy is, and these pieces are timeless because they don't have a season. Like a t-shirt today would be valid for another 10 years as well, and you can take it out from your wardrobe and wear it again, and people be like, wow, I remember that, this is that drop, this is that collab.
Wow.
And that is what this if means. Like, it's a lot about information of who collaborated with whom, when was this super cool product dropped. And yeah, like, there's a lot of people read a lot, and people have a lot of knowledge if they are like sneakerheads or like streetwear fans.
Yeah, I think the key ingredient is authenticity. People who are part of this, as they are part of any other subculture, have a very strong bullshit filter, and increasingly more and more consumers have very strong bullshit filter. So if there are brands that don't really get it, there have been big brands in the country who want to ride the skateboarding wave, if you will, and then they will have just like regular models holding the skateboard completely wrong, just posing with it, not wearing the right shoes and stuff like that, trying to ride a wave. And that's never going to be accepted. That's not to say that brands should not participate in this. There is enough and more to spread things. Sorry, I have just some sort of like a random pop-up that came up. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, but the thing is to authentically create. So instead of working with just some other random model or a random crew that doesn't understand skate culture, what if they actually work with the skateboard people who understand skate culture and actually co-created with them? So a super important thing, and this is the one thing that a lot of people don't understand, because they're like, oh, there's a lot of money to be made, youth culture, let's do it, let's do streetwear, hashtag become streetwear, but it's authenticity, and like this bullshit filter is so strong. And what I love is people who are, the tastemakers in this space. Like, you should just forget about their fashion sense, forget about what they do, but you should just try talking to them. There's so much depth to what a lot of these people say. Makes a very interesting conversation. Like, I'm a big sucker for great conversation, So it's always a whole amalgamation, different facets to these people that's so interesting, that's so colorful, that shows in their life and their lifestyle, and that is what makes it exciting for people to sort of want to associate with. So every time I travel, I have to just look up the cool streetwear boutiques in whichever city, and I can be guaranteed that I will invariably end up visiting that part of the city that is probably the coolest, the most underground, that even maybe people who live in that city may not know. Only the cool locals will know. We'll have the greatest bars, the greatest restaurants, the greatest stores, the greatest nightlife. So, this is just ways in which you can sort of spot where street culture exists within a city. And Meenakshi already mentioned a couple of brands, So, and what she said was super important, that you could be introduced to streetwear and street culture in any way. And there are a lot of people who are will be like, oh no, I'm the OG and these guys are new heads. And, we don't subscribe to all that nonsense. It's all inclusive, it's all encompassing. Maybe because we're women, I don't know, we're a lot more inclusive, I don't know. But, there's time and place for everyone. So even if there is hype culture, but people get introduced to it, take your time, read about it, understand what your affinities with things are, and then go on from there. So some magazines to read would be, like Meenakshi already mentioned, some brands categorically for, if you want to follow streetwear and street culture, follow brands like Stussy, Carhartt, the Hundreds, Chinatown Market, follow these guys, and you'll those will be your introduction points into this super exciting world.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned some really interesting, valid points, right? Like one is you mentioned that I think being underground is a big part of streetwear and street culture, right? So how does that, how do you create that balance between being cool and underground and being, or rather doing stuff that improves awareness and, reaching out to the larger audience? How do you balance those two?
Well, I feel that this is not underground anymore, when 3-4 years back, when Supreme and Louis Vuitton collaborated, that's when this whole underground thing was, it was dismissed after that, because everything is about being in your face in the time now, I mean, there are underground things happening, definitely, like there are these, and that is what keeps it cool, because there would be these parties that you cannot get an entry to, and you'll see only the streetwear stalwarts and people who are closely knit in their friends and family community are allowed there, and those kind of things keep it super cool and super niche. You're like, why can't I have that? But underground is you get to know about it, you might not have access to it. I think that's what makes it cool, And basically streetwear also, as Bhavisha has been saying, streetwear works around community. So the labels or platforms like Capsul, they give preference to their community first and then rest of the people. So I guess for an outsider would be like, oh, that's really cool. How can I get my hands on it? Or how can I get an entry to a certain thing? But so we kind of love our community. We communicate everything to our community first and then go out, and I think if that keeps it cool, then it keeps it cool. It's not intentional, that is how we work.
Great. That's a great marketing tip, actually. And now coming to marketing, right? Especially for a brand like yours that's up and coming, community is so important, and keeping in touch with them, in person as well as online is so important, especially now. In times of lockdown and quarantine, how are you managing to keep this community engaged, or being in touch with this community? I promised myself that I won't talk a lot about COVID and lockdown, because enough has been said already. But I guess we need to touch upon this point. What are you guys doing during this time?
We're a very small business, a very small team, and most of our work where we need help is outsourced. So there's a lot of work, even though business is shut, as in shipping is not happening right now. So there are very few people who are buying some really hot pieces that we are dropping here and then again to keep our consumers engaged. We're not able to ship them out. So
they're still buying.
They are, because I mean, streetwear works in that manner, right? It's limited edition. They will not have it later. Right. So,
so it defies basically the purchase behavior.
Exactly. So they have been buying for sure, but obviously the demand is less of products, as in, I wouldn't call it demand, but just people are buying less because they don't know when they're going to receive products. But we've been doing a lot of things, we've been doing live sessions. There's a property called Quarantine with Capsul, where we invite again, like, creative entrepreneurs actually from the creative industry. So we have had people who own surf schools, people who are people who own offices where these live images for huge concerts are being designed and like are being live streamed from there. Makeup artists who are kind of doing small workshops on what could the makeup style be for your next streetwear shoot. So again, all of them are friends and family, and they're kind of helping us come on live sessions and again helping keep us engaged with our consumers. So that is what we've been up to.
Yeah, I think, for the past, I think a little over a year and a half, our life has been to introduce cool product, introduce cool brands, tell cool stories, right? So I would say that I don't even know how to do anything else anymore. So with the lockdown and everything else was announced, I think we wanted to have like a sense of normalcy. And we realized that, like we have to continue to engage with the community and, have conversations with them. So we just sort of started these, we started doing live sessions, which is something that we really wanted to do for a while, because we love, in addition to selling a product is that one aspect that Capsul provides, but there's a much larger sort of platform that we want to provide. And one of it was these conversations, which we think is super integral to what we've been doing, especially during quarantine. And in fact, through them, like our follower base has also increased by like 25%. So we're clearly doing something. Nice. And these kind of sessions are just great. It took a lockdown for us to get down to it. We also continued to, through our entire, like we've got a lot of product that we've been waiting to launch. But given that the minute deliveries have stopped, and obviously we can't go anywhere, we can't do our pop-ups, which is something that is very special to us, because we have this property called Word in the Street. And pop-ups, so Capsul is an online shop plus a pop-up experience, where we do entire bar takeovers. And that was super important to us, especially as a marketing tool. Now we can't do those things, but these kind of panel conversations, which now have the avatar of quarantine with Capsul, are now happening digitally. So pop-ups went away. We stopped COD. Which is another big chunk of the revenue. And then we're like, okay, so what do we do? Go through the entire list of products. The products which are really, really, really super limited is what we kept dropping. That's how we've been able to, continue doing sales, which I think is, I'm quite proud of us to have been able to do that.
That is cool. Great. I remember on like touching community, I remember coming to your house for one of these parties, which was I think a book reading party.
Book
reading Bobby's book, Bobby 100. Right. And for me, it was so cool. It was so different than anything that I had ever gone to before. And it was so amazing to see that all these people who were there, they were just there to read his book. And when you actually started with the audiobook, everybody was just sitting with a beer in hand and just listening to the book. And I was amazed. I never had this kind of an experience. And I looked around the room and I was like, okay, you know what? This is what an engaged community looks like.
What you just said, where I've never experienced something like this. The number of people who've come to our events and have told us that.
Yeah.
Like they don't know. We're not allowed to cuss and all here, right? Like to keep it PG.
Yeah, I think let's keep it PG.
So, like,
for the LinkedIn audience.
We don't know what's going on, but we just love it. And beers are very essential. I think the one very important aspect to Capsul is spirit in both form.
Yeah. I mean, being a marketer myself, I know how hard it is to build a community that's engaged. And going beyond just followers and the metrics.
We've been talking about community so much. I really recommend do whatever hacks anybody has to, like even for your LinkedIn viewers, audience, get your hands on Bobby's book. It's not just about streetwear. It's just literally about building a community and storytelling.
What is the book called?
It's called This Is Not a T-Shirt.
Okay.
It's available on Amazon. It was available on our website. I think we're sold out. But audiobooks available. It's just for any marketer, especially in today's day and age. And people who sort of work with a young demographic, with a youth demographic.
Oh yeah.
I think it should be essential reading for anybody.
Well, yeah, I mean, whatever little I heard in that party, it was amazing because, like I said, being a marketer myself, I know what it means to actually have an engaged community. You can do your ads and do organic efforts and drive numbers, and you can show beautiful numbers to your to the C-suite and to the board, and they'll all be happy. But what it's like when you post something and people genuinely connect with you. Yeah. So that's one thing that I've seen with you guys. You guys do it so well. So that's amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The recent we have a giveaway challenge right now going on our Instagram, and some of the videos are breaking the internet. Like, we're so happy with the participation, and really we thank all the guys who have been pushing the message out there. But if you would have seen a couple of the kiddo, that girl,
Janki.
Oh man,
Janki. Her video, it's heartwarming, And then today we received one video from Nepal, one video from London. People are just I saw this on your Instagram handle, and I feel like sharing this with you guys. Sure, that's what that means a lot to us.
That's amazing. And I also think that you guys are able to do such cool stuff also because of your partnership, because of the two of you. And now that I'm also an entrepreneur, I realize that somewhere entrepreneurship can be very lonely, and having a partner who kind of complements your qualities is really crucial. It's so valuable. So how does
100%?
Yeah, how does it work with you guys? Tell me more about that.
I think it works a lot on trust and faith. If I know that Bhavisha complements the parts that I'm not good at, or if I'm not there, I know that she's going to take care of that. And I think same goes on the other side as well. But I think that is what it is. We respect each other, we respect each other's time, effort, and we value what we are bringing to the table. And there's a lot of faith in what we do together. So that means
I think it works especially well because of how Meenakshi and I are, and how perfectly we complement each other. I my advice to anybody who's starting off, not that we necessarily are in a position to start giving out advice or anything, but just to make the process more fun. And we've been doing this now for a couple of years, and I think it's to find the right co-founder. Meenakshi grounds me. I can drive her mad. But I think together we're just making a lot of stories for ourselves and for Capsul.
That's great. What about driving each other mad? What happens when you drive
each
other
mad? Fire and ice.
Okay. But I'm sure there are disagreements and
examples.
Sorry?
You need proper stories and proper examples.
Give me
validate that this actually happens. Huh?
I don't know. I can't.
I will. One thing that happens every day is that I sleep. I sometimes have to put Bhavisha on mute on my WhatsApp and then sleep because she's constantly messaging with ideas. This is something that we have to do tomorrow. Have we done this? Meenakshi. And then I get up with messages from her. I saw this there. Let's do it. We have to do this. We gotta do this. And this is a constant thing. So this is just one small piece of how my life with Bhavisha is. Bhavisha, are you on mute?
No, Sammy's saying she's laughing. Bhavisha on mute. Because Sammy used to work with us at Puma, and it was hilarious because we would do all these. So with Puma, you know how it is, right? Like with a brand, like with a sneaker brand, you have to buy in advance. You buy almost 9 months in advance, right? When actually 9 to 8 months in advance.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when Sammy was in Dubai, Meenakshi is in Salzburg, I'm in Istanbul or Moscow. Like, we would really look forward to meeting in Germany and just drinking and chatting and, like, of course, seeing product and everything. But Sammy and Meenakshi would tease me and say, Bhavisha, you're never not working. But that's true, like, even when I'm on holiday, like, I don't think I can do more than 3 or 4 days on holiday. Because I start missing work, and I just feel blessed to be able to be in a space. And throughout my work career, I've enjoyed my time at Puma. And
Uh-huh.
it's great. Like, I don't think I would ever be able to do a job where I couldn't wake up and go to office and be excited by it, you know.
Wow.
Even if I'm on holiday, I'm on a beach or something, I'm thinking about stuff. That's just who I am as a person, unfortunately, for Meenakshi. But I know she figured out. I just found out today, thanks to you, Nidhi, and Bizjam, that I get put on mute.
Okay, there's one good thing that Bizjam is doing. Okay, yeah. So I think apart from just
Meenakshi doesn't know is that there's another number which I'm now going to start using.
okay, then I'll wait to hear more funny stories after that.
For sure.
One another critical aspect is working with women or women working with women. And then women in business, and then women in a business like streetwear, which is so heavily male dominated.
Yeah.
Right. So tell me more about that. I'm pretty sure you have a lot of interesting stories on how that works.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said that in the beginning, like it's a man's world when it comes to streetwear. Starting from the first ever meeting that we had to actually initially we had to pitch to the brands that India is a market. We are worthy of getting your products. Please give us your products, So we spent 1.5 years doing that. It wasn't a joke for us. Like when we started doing this in June of 2017, like there were a couple of, I had not put down my papers yet then, but there were a couple of holidays where we had started scoping out, going to a few trade shows in Europe and just seeing what it was all about. Two brown women in the streetwear world trying to pitch for a store which was not there.
In India.
Really, really tough.
In India.
It was really tough. It was really, really
a
tough.
completely strange demographic to the streetwear world.
Yeah. I think there the only factor that really helped us was our careers at Puma, and that was one connect that it was like a pass for us to kind of go to a lot of people who we were able to meet at the end. So that is where this whole challenge started. And then when we came back to India and we started setting up our business, and then we saw that there were a lot of bros running a lot of reselling shops here, and they still do. They're doing a damn good job. And our consumers, I think more than half of them think that we are bros, because that is how the messages always come to us. Hey bro, hey dude, hey bro, sir, hey brother. So yeah, that is how it has been, like in fact yesterday there was a skate submission, and there was this girl who was sending it, and it was hilarious because I think through her name Bhavisha wasn't able to gauge that it was a boy or a girl. So I think Bhavisha would have said, bros, why don't you tag us in the video, and we'll be able to repost it. We can't download and repost. So she's like, but I'm a girl. So we're like, so am I, but we are bros in this world. So yeah, I mean, it's a constant challenge, like, and there's so much of like unconscious challenge that we face, which we don't even like notice until actually, when questions like this arrive, like when you are out in the market negotiating prices for various projects, for your own product, when you're dealing with logistics people, it's tough getting that done. But we don't, I think on a daily basis, we don't see that as a challenge, but only when you reflect back, you see, that is why that person behaved like that, like, because we are women. And that is why we are not getting them. Yeah. And I always say this sometimes, this is not a grudge, but this is a feeling, underlying feeling where that you're not getting support as other guys in the market, because you're a woman, and bros are supporting bros a lot. Sisters support sisters a lot in a different way, but since streetwear is primarily menswear, bros are getting a lot more support than what we are.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I think what I've realized, especially women professionals and women entrepreneurs, there are two kinds. There are women who feel that there is a clear glass ceiling, and then there are specific challenges and this and that. And then there's the other kind who say, yeah, there might be challenges, but it doesn't, I don't really feel it. Or maybe if I really focus too hard, I'll find that there are challenges, which is so interesting to me. That at the end of the day, I wonder if this whole glass ceiling is actually is a real construct, or is it just in our minds? because everybody faces challenges in entrepreneurship in their professional career. But how much of that challenge do they owe to them being a woman, or versus them just being a person experiencing challenges
Someone just
in
messaged, oh, it's real. It's for
I,
real.
I no,
yeah yeah
I have a slightly, I don't know if it's a controversial opinion or whatever, but for me, I think that, whether it exists or not is a personal perception. I don't think there is it exists or not. I don't even know if that's the question, at least for my truth. It's if I feel if it exists, or if I feel if it doesn't exist. Like, personally, I think, for Meenakshi and me, it's not something like, if it comes up, it's something that we will talk about, but it'll never stop us. And it's probably not even more than a fraction of a second. We're like, okay, maybe that's the truth, but doesn't matter. We
you
continue
just
to
gotta
follow,
go
we
ahead.
continue to soldier on and figure out a way. If you're not
Yeah.
loud enough, you do whatever you have to be louder till you can't be ignored. And I think that's something that drives us. So I'm 100% sure like that there are lots of instances. In fact, a few years ago, there was this one lady who said that she changed her name or email address and started speaking to clients via email using a mail
Okay.
name. I don't know if
Uh-huh.
you came across this, but it sort of like broke the internet.
No.
It's very interesting.
And
Wow.
the minute she would talk, like she would send out an email with a mail name, just the kind of responses she would get was so different. And initially, she's like, she started that as an experiment, and then she's like, she spoke to her boss about it, and the boss refused to believe her till it went on for some time, and then the boss also realized. So I think. I do think that since the workforce is more male dominated, and there's a certain bro, sort of like a bro
Culture.
thoughts, people are I guess
Uh-huh.
guys are just a lot, I mean, if I have to sit and think and analyze it, I think guys are just a lot more comfortable talking to each other because then they can talk smack, and maybe they have to be a little bit more polite when a woman is around, and that's just more effort and not easy.
Uh-huh.
Like, I'm part of a few groups where it's super male dominated, and it's most of the women are usually silent, but it is what it is. I think I think there are so many labels and tags and everything. If a woman
Yeah.
be like a
But like,
bro, then there are other things, but I think just plod on, and I think you got to find your own. If you feel that you have a glass ceiling, I think it's super important to have, like, realize that you need to work that out and learn how to deal with it, whether that is going to a different organization or learning to shatter it or whatever, what have you. I think that's something that is my truth.
I think that's very true. Like, we have faced challenges, but we always say that, okay, ignore that. We have to get this work done. And how do we do that? We just try and find another way around it. But just reflecting back, there has been, I would say there is a lot of unconscious bias that happens, like growing up the corporate ladder, I would say, like there are lesser salaries for women. They're not, and that could be because of many factors, but there's one thing that is very evident. And even in these days when we are looking at so many webinars on live sessions during
Yeah.
quarantine,
True.
there are not visible, there are not enough women leaders visible in
Yeah.
any of these webinars.
I
It's
noticed
really,
that.
really
Yeah.
sad, and it doesn't give you confidence. And I think that has a larger impact on the audience which is watching it. It's like why is there no women on these retail panels that are going on these fashion panels, business panels, financial conversations that are happening? Why? I mean, women are there. Okay, they might not be the topmost CEO, MD, or whatever, but I think consciously the companies need to include them in these conversations for the
Yeah.
sake of other women, taking inspiration from these women and building up some confidence in their lives. So there has been a lot of unconscious bias for sure, be it salaries, be it, just negotiation power, be it investors undermining your pitch, in comparison to some other pitch that is happening there by a male, I would say, person. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I would say there's nothing right or wrong in this. There are people who feel there's a glass ceiling, and I've also met people who feel that there is no glass ceiling, in that, they've never faced challenges, but I guess it's so much of a personal experience. But one thing I think you said very beautifully, that you just got to plod on. Like, you just, accept it. And if you just hold on to it and kind of sit back,
Yeah.
then, it's going to be your
and
loss, which
and
is.
Nidhi, family also plays a big part there, like both
Mhm.
of us, we've grown up with the family and family members and parents who have always encouraged us all the time. They
Yeah.
never, kind of they always told us to think the best about us. So, and even now, if you're low, your family supports you, and they also help you overcome these challenges. So that plays a big part too.
You know what's
I think
really
while
interesting?
this is a personal truth for people, I think it's also super important to have conversations and to sort of sensitize more people. Like I've been watching a lot of BOF podcasts, sort of webinars, and over there like female representation is really spot on. But that's a much more progressive sort of like a platform and stuff like that. And maybe it's just a conversation that a lot of women are leading the charge, wanting to have this conversation. But I think it's important to include men as well, because I don't think that they're doing it necessarily purposely. It's just probably how it's been, what they've seen. And I think it's just a conversation about maybe you keep sort of like sensitizing more and more people so that it's a lot more inclusive, and then we'll start seeing, and I think we've already started seeing change.
So, I think so too, thankfully. Yeah, great. So this is such an interesting conversation. I loved it. Thank you so much. Thank you guys. I think we're right on time.
I know, like
yeah,
I think high five for that,
like bang on.
And
sweet.
Thank you for the people who are listening to us.
Thank you so much for
tuned in.
You know what I can do is I can we can invite some questions if people have. What do you guys think?
Sure.
Quickly, if there are any
so if you guys have any questions for Bhavisha and Meenakshi, you can put it in the chat, and then I'll unmute you and you can speak to them yourself.
Yeah, and you can actually, when you're putting up this recording on LinkedIn, you could throw that question in there as well. We'd be happy to reply to answer, to questions.
That'd be good.
But these are all friends here, so I guess they know us.
Yeah, well, I guess this is the first show anyway, so I guess as more and more people get to know about this, probably later they'll post questions.
Yay, Bizwize.
Super.
Yeah, so ending with a bit about myself. I am a digital and e-commerce marketer by experience, and I'm also the founder of Bizwize Consulting. What we do is we help startups and enterprises scale up their businesses through digital and e-commerce marketing, people and leadership consulting, finance and regulatory consulting, and investment and partnership consulting. So there's a lot of good experiences that we have with a lot of different companies, a lot of different businesses, and I guess that's how me, Meenakshi, and Bhavisha kind of met and started talking, and we then ended up becoming friends. So I think it's been a great ride, and it's been really good knowing you guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you started us off in performance marketing, when we started this part of our sort of relationship, although you also fed me once when I was very hungry. You gave me noodles at some
when we were drunk.
morning, but you started us off on our performance marketing journey.
Yeah, I remember. Great.
All right, Nidhi, to lots more chais and samosas later, Gator.
Yes, thank you so much for having us. Wish you all the best for your series.
Thank you, and wish you all the best for your business.
All righty.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.